thank you all for coming out on this toasty evening. It is so great to see a packed house for this, and you guys are going to have a lot of fun tonight seeing this film. You're one of the very first audiences, I believe, to see this in a real movie theater.
Yes.
How did you first come on board with this film? Because it was originally called Project Artemis, and it had kind of been bouncing around for a bit.
Yeah, about 2 years ago, it was a Go movie at Apple for the streamer. Scarlett was the producer on it, and her producing partners, and we had met a few times on another project, and she and her team sort of reached out to me out of the blue and said, "This is happening. We'd like to start shooting in the fall, and is this something you'd ever be interested in doing?" They were a fan of the last film I'd done, and so I took a look at the script and I sort of fell in love. I mean, the script really, my first reaction to it was, it reminded me when I was a kid growing up in the 80s, every weekend you could go to the movie theater and see an original story with, big stars, and you didn't know what was going to happen, and it would be a mixture of comedy and drama and action, and it had all those elements, and then it had the whole space race, which I was a tremendous fan of, as a kid and an adult. And so it was, I really couldn't foresee another opportunity that would blend all those things and a chance to work with someone like Scarlett, who was producing her first feature. And so there were so many, I checked every box really, and so I was lucky to join.
And but you, it had been a while since Love, Simon, which was your last film, which is a great movie. If you haven't seen it, it's fantastic.
Yeah,
so what is... What is it that makes you just say, that's a movie that I want to direct? Because, I mean, you're a very busy guy.
It has to be a film that I think I would be the best director for. Because so many times I think, there'd be a better person who could do this. And Love, Simon hit those things, obviously, for very deeply personal reasons. I felt like that was a missing film from the. I worked in a video store growing up, and I started the video store in my hometown. And there were always boxes on the shelf of different movies, and sometimes in my mind I'm sort of like, well, this is the one box that wasn't there, and in a way this was sort of like that. I think my son was born 8 years ago, and the first picture I got for his room was a picture of Neil Armstrong's suit when it came off of him when he returned from the moon, and so I had that was my very first meeting. I showed them the picture that was in my son's room. It was sort of, I just felt really drawn to it.
So and then of course the process of casting the film, you had the idea of bringing in Jim to play the filmmaker within the film.
Yes.
By the way,
begged me to be in this. No, I auditioned. I had the privilege of auditioning.
Well, okay, so I would normally be like, oh, how did you get cast? What's your process, da-da-da. In this case, wardrobe, those ties are amazing. You're going to see what I'm talking about. You will not believe the stuff he wears in this movie.
Lance. I play Lance Vespertine, and you'll see he is his outfits. But all the outfits are great. Mary Zoffres, was costume designer. It was like a treasure trove of just 1969 laid out for you to try on.
Yeah. It really is something special when you're watching a movie, and every time that you make an entrance in the movie, I would just be like, "Oh my God!"
Yes. No. And I just kept telling them, "Tighter, make it tighter." You'll get it when you see it.
What was between the two of you? Were there any actual directors that were a little bit of inspiration in there?
Oh, that was all Greg. Everything you see on the screen and how my behavior is, imagine that directing you. That's what it was like. No, I didn't pull.
You guys are going to love Jim in this movie. He's such a great guy. I mean, he's so great in this movie. He's so talented. And he was the first person I auditioned for this film.
Really?
The very first person. And at his audition, I said to him, and you have to kind of get the character to get the joke, but you've seen it, you see. I said, okay, just treat the fake moon landing like it's a big theatrical production, and you're going to make your name off of it, and it's opening night, and you're giving a speech to the astronauts. Go. And he just started improvising for like a 15-minute long monologue.
And he kept saying, "Stop, we have enough, stop." And I said, "I have got a hard 15 minutes."
And I felt the character being born in the room. And honestly, there is a half hour of movie that's on the cutting room floor of Jim in this movie that is Apple will release a whole DVD extra of Jim, just of Jim.
Please,
old school
please
DVD. So get your DVD players back.
I don't care how you have to make that happen, whatever it takes.
Well,
So it's there's also in it there's also kind of a thing about it's like making a movie. Not the fact that he's a director, but there are comments about reality, about whether it looks real, whether it's believable, what what people are seeing in front of them. Can you trust it? Which is something very resonant today with things like AI, and that issue is still with us. So, but you make it funny. But were you thinking about it at all when you made the film? Like, this is something that it's weird how it's kind of come back to again.
Definitely. I mean, we couldn't make a movie about like one of the OG conspiracy theories in this hyper politicized era that we live in. But I think, and again, I don't want to give anything away about the film, but when I got to the end of the third act of reading the script, which is sort of the theme of really why the truth is important and why the truth matters more than ever. And by making the audience care so much that the real thing did occur, I think that was that, and the sense of NASA's participation and wanting to honor that the whole time. We kind of went headfirst at it, as opposed to shying away from a topic that I think others might say, oh, are people going to think X or think Y? Hopefully when you see the film, you see that we really revere and celebrate what was accomplished. But to do it, we had to kind of own and wrap our arms around the fact that a lot of people, and we saw it in testing when we were testing the movie, there's a lot of people who think it was faked.
Yeah. And I assume a lot of you probably already know this, but there's been a long-standing conspiracy theory that Stanley Kubrick was brought in to help fake the moon landing because of 2001: A Space Odyssey. And you actually there's a couple of references in here, not just in the dialogue, but also there's a really funny musical nod as well in there.
And Jim does a whole riff that some of which is in the film and some of which isn't, about how he's his mortal enemy.
Yeah. So there was plenty of me looking up Kubrick stuff to use when we were shooting. But that'll be on the DVD. So.
Okay.
But we get a couple of couple in there.
Well, okay. So now we got to ask. This is not a spoiler, but there's one line where they say, "Oh, Kubrick, he made one great movie, and that's it." Is 2001 the great movie that's being referred to?
I think so.
Okay. So not Spartacus, not The Killing,
I think he calls him a hack.
Yeah.
Right.
Call him a hack. Right. Yeah. Right? And it was a truth that came from me.
I think the ghost of Stanley Kubrick is going to wind up manifesting here in a minute now. Something else, of course, about the script is that you have a character who was in an authority position, the director, who was gay in the late 60s, which was kind of an interesting time, because we're talking like the start of gay rights and Stonewall,
Stonewall, right
as
there.
that was happening. So how did you decide how to sort of treat this character? Because you couldn't have him being so far out at the time, because that was something, I mean, there were gay directors back to the silent era, obviously, but it was always kind of like everybody knows, but it's not really talked about.
No, but I think what I loved about it was, as you'll see, is Lance is not unapologetic for lots of things, both who he is, how he behaves,
Right.
what he has to say, and his vision. But he has this weird and wonderful relationship with Scarlett's character, where she asks about his boyfriend. That seems to be this relationship, this world that he has fallen himself into. So he struggles in being notarized to his liking. But I think for the most part, it was just nice to play someone who this is who he was, and it wasn't made much of a meal of, other than this is him.
So let's just talk about the rest of the cast for both of you. Obviously, you've got not just Scarlett, but you've got Channing Tatum, you've got Woody Harrelson, Ray Romano. What was it like working with them, and how did they wind up getting involved?
So Scarlett, as you know, was producing it. So I felt like everyone wants to work with Scarlett, and rightly so. She's an icon for a reason. I will say, of everybody on this movie, there's always, you never know what's going to be your favorite part of making a film, but the cast genuinely was the most exciting and the most fun, and everyone got along brilliantly, and they really all are as advertised. Like, if you love Woody Harrelson, he's a great guy and also such an amazing comedic talent and a big heart. And Ray Romano, I begged to be in the film. I wrote him a fan letter that said, I've been a fan of yours forever. Will you please just meet with me? And he met with me, and he was like, this is weird. Like, who writes these kind of letters? I've never gotten a letter like this before. So I think he really just wanted to see how crazy I was. And then we Rose Gilroy, who wrote the draft, we just kept polishing the script to these people. And then on the day, they brought so much more too. And Channing Tatum, same thing. I mean, and they all are, and I include obviously Jim in this, they're all amazing at, I think sometimes they're underappreciated for their dramatic abilities and they're amazing comedians. And they can do both in a split second. And I always feel like when you're making a show or a movie, if you go to set and you don't know what's going to happen that day, the audience isn't going to know what's going to happen that day. And if you're laughing and you're surprised, then and you can imbue the movie with that, then everybody will have a great time. And to do that, when everybody, the most famous question I've always gotten asked is tone. And it's all about casting. For me, if you cast people who can do anything, then your movie can do anything, or your show can do anything. And I was very fortunate on that with this, and I experienced it every day, all the way through post, where it just becomes then about choices, you know.
And what about you? Like working with all these amazing actors.
I guess I was on a different movie than he was. Because the drama. I wish there was. No, it's everything. I don't want to just piggyback on what Greg said because he said it eloquently. But I could tell. Now, my part of the movie and the structure of it, I'm mostly with Scarlett and Anna Garcia. But Scarlett, from my perspective, just set, along with Greg, this wonderful tone outside of what we were doing, the tone of the movie, tone of the set, the love of making something. And so you could sort of feel that, especially when you're doing something that's so many days, so many moving parts, so many balancing acts within those tones. So, and then Channing, and I've said this, and he'll admit it, just kept flirting with me.
How did you fend him off? Like what?
I don't fend people off.
Him and Woody are the duo you never knew you wanted.
Yes,
I mean, the two of them have they're the whole last act is the two of them side by side, and we just sat there for a day and let them riff. I mean, and it was hysterical.
Yeah, that was fun.
And like we know from Jojo Rabbit and Hail Caesar that Channing and Scarlett, they're made to be in period clothing. I mean, they can pull it off just like they are true movie stars. But even like Woody Harrelson and Ray, and of course you, I mean, did you just look in the mirror sometimes and be like, oh wow, we look really good? I mean,
no, I'm telling that's all Mary, all trusting this vision. And yes, these are the clothes you just hope. You're just waiting for them to circle back so we can put them back on.
I'd never done a period film before, so I was the most nervous probably about that. And the two individuals that taught me more than I've learned from anyone in the business in the last decade were Mary Zafries, who did costumes, and Darius Walski, who is our DP and also plays the DP, his DP in this film. They're both masters of their craft for separate reasons. But Mary, she dresses every single background person herself. I mean, she once missed her flight to LA. I came down at like 7:30 and she was flying back. I'm like, Mary, you're gonna miss your flight. And I'm like, I didn't cast that actor. Who's that actor that you're dressing? And it was someone in background in one of the scenes. I mean, that's the level of detail. And both of them sort of had the same philosophy, which is a period film is made in all of the details that aren't in the forefront, you know, like everything and that dedication of all of those elements. And Darius, he'd never acted before, and we kept auditioning DPs, and then I would like listen to him talk about how we're going to fake the moon landing, and I'm like, well, that's what we need in the movie. Will you be in the movie? And he said yes. So
it's meant to be.
Yes, it was fantastic, real quick. But yes, there are many times he would whisper to me, "Now, what are we doing?" You know, because we'd be over in the corner. Go, we just have to pretend like we're talking. It's fine. Just pretend like we're talking. They're shooting over there. You know that part. So just say, because I think it drove him crazy that sometimes when we were on camera.
It's very funny.
Now, really quick, we're going to be running short on time in a minute, but I just want to talk about your support of MPTF. As Courtney mentioned, Greg is a massive supporter. But first, I just want to say, you may not realize that Jim took part in an event last year called One Night Only for the Groundlings, which was supporting MPTF. Could you just briefly explain what that is? Because it is insane.
I'll make it really fast. But basically, the Groundlings Theater, we've done this before. At the Groundlings, we did it at a larger venue, a newer theater, where we stage a full production in 24 hours. So we did we learned that we were doing a chorus line 36 hours before our curtain, and then we found out 24 hours before what we were playing, and I was playing the director Zach or whatever, and it was like Kristen Wiig and all these people, and we're learning the choreography, we're learning everything. Now it's a little bit of a fun disaster, but we did the whole thing from beginning to end. It was stressful but fun. Yeah.
Well, thank you for going through that.
Yes,
what would
my
be a nightmare
pleasure.
for me. I appreciate it. And now, Greg, so I mean, obviously you've done so much for us. You're on the board. What is about MPTF that is special to you?
Well, I mean, it's an honor to be associated with this organization. I think I love the legacy of Hollywood and the connectivity to it, in the sense that, that's most of why I wanted to be a part of it, was to be a part of that legacy and to be connected to all of those storytellers that came before. And as you work more and more in this business and you realize that 95% of the hard work is done by individuals who will never get the notoriety or the acclaim or the money that comes with all that stuff, I feel like our number one job is to protect and help those people have the dignity and the whatever that chapter is of their life, to enjoy it and to give back to them who gave so much to all of us. So it's really...
Well, thank you both very much. Like I said, we only have a couple of minutes, but we might have time for a couple of questions if anybody wants to raise their hand. Anybody? Wait for the microphone, please.
Greg, this is basically a production question. How many days did it take you to shoot the movie?
In the 60s, but we had double up days and things like that. So we were at NASA for 5 days, but we had 2 units that I would bounce back and forth between. So I did a lot of TV cheats.
Okay, so here comes the tough question.
Yeah.
What was your best day and what was your worst day?
Gosh,
Say when I arrived. Do not say when I arrived.
that really is both, actually.
That I'll take.
I think my best day was probably one of our days down at NASA. We shot at Cape Kennedy, and they let us, there's more of that in this film than I think any narrative feature ever. And we were allowed everywhere, and we had to prep it. We had to keep going back to Florida. I must have gone to Florida 7 times just to prep for these 5 days. And I kept loading scenes onto this, and everyone kept saying, it's the end of the picture. We didn't have to do a day of pickups on this movie. And so everyone was concerned you're going to be at the end of the movie and you're not going to be able to finish if you put these scenes on and we don't get them if there's weather, inclement weather or anything. And there's something when you go there, if you haven't had a chance to go there, that it's a spiritual experience watching these rockets go off. And it's pretty crazy when you're used to saying hold for plane and you're like hold for rocket and everybody stops and a rocket. By the time the 5th rocket went off, I'm like, all right, let's get going. But it really is and the scale and the size of the place and the sense of human achievement just by being there, and the sense of connectivity to each other. You don't feel like, oh, this one's a Republican or this person's a Democrat. You just feel a sense of all these people working together. So that was definitely my best day. There were some days we had, the majority of this film was shot in Atlanta in the winter, and it plays in July in Florida in 1969. So we had some tough days in Atlanta with inclement weather and things like that. We had one day where there was a tornado watch and we were still shooting through it and things like that. So I would say probably that was the most challenging.
Safety third.
I think we have time for one more.
Two more.
Two more
questions.
Okay. Give me a hand. This is not a quiet crowd. No? No questions. By the way, Jim was fantastic in a chorus line. I don't know how you did it.
Oh, thank you.
Unbelievable.
Fine, I'll do some. No.
So, Greg, a little background, because the film was originally intended not for theatrical distribution, right?
Correct.
So could you walk us through that? Because it's a fabulous, exciting story about why we're going to see it in the theaters.
So this time last year in the summer, we first started testing it. And I will say the audience reaction was overwhelming, but I think it was the spirit of seeing something original with movie stars, and it just was the number one thing that kept coming back, the audience felt like it was a theatrical movie, and Apple in their nimbleness and their openness was very open to that. They had a few films they were waiting to sort of see, or just seeing how they were going to do theatrically in that space. So then by around the fall, they started showing it to theatrical distributors, and Tom Rothman came in and sort of anointed that this is a theatrical movie. We want to release it, and then that was right around Christmas. That was my Christmas news, and so we did a little bit more work. We tested it one more time. We kind of put it through the paces of making sure it was theatrical, but there was so much time spent on the theatricality of all the rocket sequences. You'll see a moon landing, you'll see rocket sequences, you'll see a walk on the moon. Where there's a lot of we did just to reenact the moon walk as it would have been faked in 1969 with 1969 technology, which is the majority of a large section of the movie. Took months and months of rehearsal and practice to do, and so there's a lot about it that is a feature event. So hopefully the audience, as you all see it. But it is one of those movies where I think it's going to take just like more people spreading word of mouth and talking about it. So we're really
that was going to be my next. How many people here we're going to get the pleasure of seeing it in a theater? How many people here are going to leave and tell 10 friends, go see this movie in the movie theater?
Well, enjoy it first.
Good.
Enjoy
Yeah.
it first.
Good. Good.
I hope you like it.
And you get to hear it in the theater, which is important because this is a great sounding movie. The score by Daniel Pemberton is great. He's a wonderful composer.
He's brilliant.
Yeah, really just a great sounding film.
Yeah.
But you're in for a real treat. I hope you all enjoy it. And thank you so much to both of you
Yes.
for coming out.
Thank you all.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you for coming out.